Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's up? Alright, so, like, on the last video, a lot of you guys were complaining. Well, not everybody, but just a lot of you were complaining. That, basically, that I don't know what I'm doing and I should take the car to get a Pro Tune and blah, 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 blah. I took offense to some of it because most of it's just baseless bullshit. Like, I asked specifically these people, what exactly did I do wrong with my tune that makes you think that it's going to blow up, other than the fact I tuned it myself? So, we're going to go down to the tuning school today, and I'm going to have them take a look at my logs, and we're going to go over it, and we're going to see just how well I actually did. Now, if I fucked it up, you're going to see that. I'm not going to edit anything out. The whole point of this is for me to learn. Like, I want to learn. That's why the whole time I asked, I said, if there's something specific, please tell me. I'll go over the information and then make a decision based on that. Like, I want to learn. I'm not trying to be like, I'm a pro tuner and I know what the fuck I'm doing and everybody's stupid. That's not the case. But when people just get on here and make baseless accusations and then spout off their tuner's name, like, dude, you're gonna blow it up, go get it tuned by XYZ. Okay, that's a blatant advertisement. I don't give a fuck about that. That means nothing to me. Alright, so let's get into STI, which I will say, M-Tuned did an excellent job on this car. This is a good tune. And I'll tell you why. It's a good tune because the motor's still alive. I've been driving this thing now for, I don't know, about a year and a half with his tune on it. Excellent. I beat on it. Everything's good. I've looked at the timing that he uses. I looked at the fuel. His AF learning values are 0% at almost all times. Every once in a while it'll jump to 1 or 2% and then it goes back to 0. That's essentially fuel trim. And what that tells me is that the dude knows what the fuck he's doing. That's the type of stuff that I'm looking for. Oh, real quick before we go to the tuning school, I want to announce the winner of these Kicks wheel spacers. Ready? Ta-da! There it is. Instagram account, Subaru STI 15. Awesome photo. Him and his kid are going to have fun installing these wheel spacers. Congratulations, brother. Thanks for watching. Alright, so we're here at the tuning school.
Yes.
What's going on, brother?
Not much, man. How's it going?
Pretty good. So, you know, you guys are the tuning school.
That
So I
is
was
us.
wondering if you could give me a grade report.
I probably can, yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna look this over and see how it looks. What you got logging, I've got to get used to see what you have exactly going on here, but ignition timing looks good. You're probably still on the conservative side with where you're currently at. At 13 degrees at wide open throttle. So it really actually came up to about 14. So 13.6.
Okay.
Kind of across the board here. Oops, not what I wanted to do. So you see it's 12 to 14. I suspect the car might take a little bit more. It depends on the pressure it's running. Boost pressure wise, I haven't made it that far yet. I'm assuming that's probably in here somewhere.
Engine load. 22.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so you could probably get away with maybe a little bit more, maybe. I'm not sure. Your airfar looks good. Here. O2 sensor.
It's a little wavy from... I've been trying to smooth that section out right there.
I gotcha. It's going to be difficult to get it perfectly smooth a lot of times.
Okay.
It can be a bit of a challenge. Jeez, this thing's kicking my butt. There we go. So, it's not a huge deal, but you might even try a little bit, like slightly leaner, and seeing if it maybe makes a little bit better power. That's kind of on the rich side for what you're dealing with now. Based off the boost pressure, it's okay. I normally would try to have it set up a little bit on the richer side, and that's, I mean, speaking from the domestic stuff, but my domestic stuff's not designed to take 22 psi of boost where, like, you know, your stuff is. So that makes a little bit of a difference. All this other stuff looks pretty good. Let's see. Pressure ratio, throttle. Yeah, man. Intake air temp's not bad. So your intercooler's doing good work. so I wouldn't be too concerned with that. That guy right there.
This was with the ambient temperature of probably about 100 degrees.
Yeah, that's actually really, really good. Normally, rule of thumb is 30 degrees above ambient is pretty normal.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, and that's actually on a naturally aspirated car. On a forced induction car, we normally say you can get up to 50 degrees above ambient.
Wow.
So the fact that you're at 100 ambient and 111 air is pretty freaking
Pretty
good.
good,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and that's actually going to help you. That's going to give you the ability to actually run more timing. It's actually going to help you when it comes to running more timing.
Okay.
Having those temps a little bit colder. Load. Just looking at a few other things. Injector pulse. What size injectors do you have in this thing?
They are 1600s.
Okay, I was about to say because the injector pulse is really low.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to work very hard at all, which is a good thing. I mean, you'd rather not push them super hard. Like your duty cycle's only at 59%. That's definitely not an issue.
What would you say would be a safe duty cycle? Like?
What we tell our customers is if you're going anywhere above 80%, it's time for new injectors.
Okay.
Because that's kind of the point where they're basically on full time, like they're doing a lot of work, garden hosing it, as we would call it. So normally when they're that high, you're going to want to raise them. However, there's specific instances, like with that CTSV I was telling you I was tuning.
Yeah.
I did a pull last night. I hit 200% duty cycle.
200.
Yeah, and a lot of that was because the fuel pumps were not able to supply the engine. So we eventually figured out. We took a video with the gauge on the rail, and you see that about a half a second before we let out the pull, the fuel pressure would just fall.
Oh wow.
And what you'll see happen is your duty cycle will spike through the roof.
Okay.
So it's spiking like that because what you've done in the tune is you've tried to throw more fuel at it to get it to be less lean.
Yeah.
And it just ramps the crap out of the milliseconds, ramping the crap out of the duty cycle, all because you're running out of fuel pressure. So there's going to be instances like that where you're going to be like 150, like that's normal. You can do it.
Wow.
A lot of times it's either the source of an issue like fuel pressure, or you really just are that far out. The way that it's typically works is it's based off of the way that I know how it works on the GM side of things is it knows how much it's opening the injectors in milliseconds, and it knows the RPM.
Okay.
Based off of that, it estimates the window of time, like the intake valve open, like the amount of time you have to inject fuel, and that duty cycle represents of that amount of time how much were you spraying for that.
Oh wow.
So in your case, you're only spraying half the time, a little over half the time. Now, if it was 100%, you'd be spraying every ounce of time that intake valve's open. If you're 130%, in theory, you're spraying while the intake valve is now closed again.
Oh.
So you can't get the fuel into the motor that you need to.
I
So that's
see.
kind of what that number represents. And yeah, we normally say 80%
Yeah.
time for new ones.
So these are
So
good then.
These are perfectly fine. Yeah, you're not even gonna really stress these at all.
Sweet.
You could probably even crank up the boost pressure if you really feeling froggy.
I still have
and
another
get a
fuel
little-
pump to
get a
use
little
too.
more.
This is
Awesome.
only on one pump, and there's
Yeah.
another one, but I'm not activating it until I get ready for
Yeah.
E85.
Are they IDs? Is that what they are?
No, they're RCI.
Okay. All right. Cool. I'm not super familiar with that company.
It's a Bosch.
Yeah. Well, they're all Bosch
Oh,
injectors.
okay.
Most of them are.
Learned something today.
Yeah, most of them are. Most of like I know ID, Fuel Injector Clinic, and a couple other guys. They pretty much all come from Bosch. They're all Bosch hardware.
Okay.
Now they do. A lot of companies will do some proprietary stuff with the caps and the pencils and stuff like that. But they all pretty much come from
Nice.
Bosch. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so then as far as the wide open throttle, I mean, this looks safe to you?
Yeah, man. Honestly, it does. It seems. I think you're actually on the conservative side of things. I think you could work your way up a little bit.
Okay.
Obviously, my advice would be, in reality, trying to get on a dyno because that's the easiest measurement for gain.
Okay.
So a lot of times having that measurement of I added 2 degrees and it made 15 more horsepower is going to be the biggest indicator to you that you're doing the right thing. And in the essence of a lot of times you're going to add timing and not pick up on knock retard but you didn't gain any power there.
Okay.
So a lot of times, let's say we started at 14 here, we added 2 degrees, it didn't knock, but it gained 2 horsepower. Did you need the 2 degrees? No, but if you're just going based off the knock sensors, that's what we call riding the knock sensors. I'm going to tune it till it knocks, then take out 2 degrees, and we're going to run it there.
Okay.
But there could be 4 degrees, 5, 6 degrees worth of timing in there that you didn't actually
It's not
need. It didn't make you
necessary.
any more power. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's where having a really expensive
Yeah.
tool like a dyno helps you out a lot because it gives you the ability to watch that power progression. I will say, I think on your car you don't have it, but on the GM side of things, we use mass airflow sensors. The mass airflow sensors actually are a good indication to us because a lot of times what we'll see happen is the mass airflow volume goes up. So you went from 60 pounds a minute to 65 pounds a minute. What we tell customers is if you move that decimal point 1 point to the right, that's roughly crank horsepower. So 60 pounds a minute is 600 horsepower.
Oh.
So if I go to 65,
Yeah.
I'm at 650 horsepower now. So I go, whatever I did, the fact that I'm moving more airflow now is a good thing.
Okay.
I've gained more power. So sometimes you can infer like that. It's kind of hard when you're not using mass airflow sensor and a lot of what you're doing is based off manifold pressure, which I believe this one
Yeah,
is.
speed
VE
density.
table.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even then, it's kind of hard. But if you added the timing and you realize that it is now lean and you have to add some VE to it, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because what it did is it consumed that fuel that was there, and it's telling you that the engine's actually needing more now, which means it's making better power. It's kind of the whole
Interesting. Yeah,
whole
that's a good
concept
tip.
there.
So that's something I could apply to street tuning,
Yeah,
basically. Once
absolutely.
I see that it's not hungry for air anymore.
Exactly.
essentially.
Yeah, and
Okay.
exactly, and that's the idea is as you add timing to this thing, so your fueling's pretty good right now, but as you add timing, what you're physically doing is you're giving it more time to burn the fuel and air mix, which normally means it's going to make this leaner.
Okay.
So normally, if you started out with a super low conservative timing number and then you started raping up the timing, you normally could almost see a half an AFR change.
I've noticed that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's because it's got
I've seen
so
that.
much more time. It's got because the piston before you're firing the spark here, and now you're firing it here on the piston's way up. It's got so much more time to actually consume that fuel that you're actually gonna need a little bit more. So to maintain the same AFR.
Wow,
So that's
a lot
it,
of
yeah.
good information in here, guys. I know a lot of you guys are going to love this, so then some of you are probably not even watching this anymore because it's just boring. But
they gave up.
I find it super interesting. Okay, so I've heard you guys say that you can teach a 10-year-old to tune wide open throttle. So this is the easy
This is
stuff.
the easy part. Yeah, the hard part normally is going to be your startup, your idle controls, it not stalling when you're coming to a red light, like stuff like
Oh.
that. Nicely enough, with the Haltech stuff, with the aftermarket stuff, it's normally pretty easy. When we're dealing with factory control systems, it's pretty freaking difficult to find the right tables to make all that stuff work. Because
Really?
normally they
Wow.
because with the standalone stuff, they strip down what you need.
Yeah.
In the factory stuff, there's 3 tables that control the airflow coming down. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you have to get everything kind of just right. Where this is pretty straightforward, so it helps you out a lot as far as drivability is concerned.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. See, now that's really interesting information because, okay, so in the Subaru community, everybody always says that when you get an AEM standalone, that drivability goes to shit. And I think what that is that means that the person that was operating it didn't know what they were doing.
yeah, oftentimes, and I'm not getting on here to bash anybody,
No,
but
but,
a lot of times we have guys in the industry that we call walk tuners, which means if you show up to a dyno shop and they do 3 pulls and hand you a dyno sheet and send you out the door, they didn't exactly do it the right way.
Yeah.
Your dyno tune should take 2 to 3 hours easy, and if you've got a really aggressive combo, it could take up to 6 hours. Because that guy's going to spend he should be spending a lot of time making sure your idle's right, it's smooth, it comes back down to an idle well, the par throttle stuff is all really good. That's the hardest part of tuning. Anybody could jump on the dyno, make 3 watt pulls,
Yeah.
get the timing dialed in, the AFR, make sure it's not knocking, and sends you out the door. It's easy money. It's good. It's not your car. It's unlikely that it'll blow up that way.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's a bad tune because you're probably safe. You're probably good. The car's not going to break, but it's going to piss you off that you have to start it back up at every red light. That's a
Yeah.
big complaint. A lot of the guys that come to our company to learn how to tune, they come with that complaint. They go, I took my car to a tuner. Thing runs great at wide open throttle, but I'm tired of starting it up every time that I come to a stop. You know what I mean? And they come to us and we teach them how to get it to not do that. So
Wow.
that's normally a huge complaint for guys that have been to tuners that normally aren't the best. So
Okay, so now that we've looked at the wide open throttle side, now I'm not having any problems with it stalling. That's good. My cold start is good. My warm start is good. My in between cold and warm start is good.
starts are good.
So I also have a log of me just driving it around.
Sure.
So let's take a look at
Yeah, I'll take a look at it. Yeah, you want to pull it up? Not what I wanted to do. Start here.
that. All right, so this is a log that I had created of me just driving around town, stop and go, normal type stuff.
Yeah.
Tune it where I'm going to drive it sort of thing.
No, it looks good. Like we were talking earlier about this timing. You were worried about it being high at 35 degrees. That's not uncommon. And
Oh, good.
yeah, so that's actually pretty normal, and it looks like the car's fairly happy there. I don't see anything abnormal as far as the knock stuff is concerned. Obviously, it's not pulling any knock retard as far as the safety stuff is concerned with the vehicle. But a lot of times, what we do in the GM world, obviously everybody knows the first thing you do when you buy an LS motor is you put a cam in it. Now it's a little bit different than what you're dealing with, but you've got some of the same attributes going on. When we put a cam in a GM motor and an LS motor, you have to run more cruising spark advance. Now the reason being is it all relates to torque. So in theory, the more timing you have, the more torque you're creating. With an aftermarket camshaft and sometimes maybe aftermarket turbos or all this other stuff you guys put in the car, you actually need more torque, more rotating inertia to keep the thing running smoothly. So actually increasing the timing is going to help you in those cruising zones if you have a really aggressive combination with big pistons that are moving up and down, maybe stroke and board, all that other stuff. Having that extra torque driving all the parts actually helps a lot. So as long as you're not getting any knock retard when you're cruising around at that timing, it should be happy. What you'd find is if you took 10 degrees out of that, the car wouldn't feel quite right. It wouldn't feel as responsive, as crisp.
Exactly.
It's like it's lacking a little bit. And you might notice some kind of surginess in the drivability. That's normally the biggest complaint that guys that get camshafts have, is they go, man, this thing surges as I'm cruising. I'm going, it's not enough timing. You have to bump up that timing number. It gives the engine more torque to work with, more rotating inertia, and it gets rid of that surgy drivability feel.
Yeah, I did experience that when I originally started. I had the timing set really low. It was probably like around 20, 23, 24 degrees in cruise.
Yeah, and now you're at 37,
30,
35 right now?
Yeah, our buddies over at NV Performance, you know, we had some discussions, and you know, we did some research, and I developed a new timing strategy I showed you guys, and it sounds like we did it right.
Yeah, and the only other thing that really jumps out to me is some of this cruising stuff's a little bit on the rich side. It's not that bad. It's pretty freaking close, honestly.
Okay.
13.7, it did get up to 14 there. It's a little bit on the rich side. It's not going to hurt you, honestly. You might just see, if you got it on a little bit on the leaner side, you might see a little bit better gas mileage.
Okay.
But that's something that you could look at. It's not necessarily a given or anything like that. It's not a super big deal.
And what would you say would be a happy AFR for cruising?
Normally for Stoik, which is the ideal mixture of air to fuel, for gasoline with E10 it is normally around like 14.1.
Okay.
It's going to be really hard to get that all the time though. It's normally going to have a swing from about 13.9 to 15.2.
Okay, so somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere in that range is probably pretty good. And that's why I say you're not really far off. Because you're in the if you look at it, you're in the high 13s, but you're in the high 13s consistently. So if you were able to just bump it like just the slightest bit, all you're gonna be getting is a better, more complete burn. Without a little bit of fuel left over.
Oh,
so that's essentially what's happening here, because you're not right at Stoik, and Stoik is the perfect burn. So Stoik is all the fuel is consumed, all the air is consumed. You're a little bit below that right now, so it's leaving a little bit of fuel in the cylinders, giving it a little bit of a rich condition, which is what we'd call it, right?
Yeah.
And you're only going to see adverse gas mileage from it slightly.
Okay.
Is it going to make a huge difference? Probably not. You might not be able to see it,
Yeah.
but that's what I see from looking at it.
Okay, so we're back on the wide open throttle pull again. Is in regards to spool up.
Yes.
My AFRs.
I will say it's very slow.
Yeah. How can I
can
improve
notice
that?
Normally, if I'm remembering correctly, and you shouldn't quote me on it, but if I'm remembering correctly, normally a richer air fuel ratio is going to help you spool up because it adds more volume, more mass to the exhaust because it's richer. So actually having that fuel in there is richer. That actually helps getting that turbo spinning faster.
Really?
Yeah, it's supposed to.
So
that's the idea behind nitrous and stuff like that. Like that's why they use nitrous on these turbo cars, is because that nitrous actually physically helps spool that turbo up.
Okay.
That's the way I understand it. That doesn't necessarily mean it is that way. I'm sure someone on the YouTubes will have a different
boy.
opinion of it.
Yeah, because from what I've kind of understood is that leaner is hotter, and it's the thermal energy that spins it.
And I'm sure it could go both ways. Like
So
I'm
maybe
sure
there's a happy
I'm sure
Yeah.
at some point it's so rich that it would do it. At some point it's so lean that the thermal energy would do it as well.
Okay.
So you have both those options there. But yeah, I mean, obviously the big thing that I noticed is like obviously you do have a long spool time. So you went to wide open throttle here, and you didn't get boost pressure till here. You know what I mean? So like you have it, but you're not at your peak until over here. Look at all that distance that you have there.
Yeah.
And now the one thing I will say that you did get right is that the fueling is or the spark, I should say, is coming in at the exact same rate. And when you get to your max pressure, you've reached the timing that you want. So like, and I don't know if you did that on purpose or if it just kind of happened, but that's a good thing. Like that's awesome. Like you should see that spark curve finally level out where your boost level's out at.
The reason I did that, I had sloped it. That way there was more power off boost.
And that's the thing, having that additional, like if you just went straight to 12 degrees, like right as you got into the wide open throttle, it probably would not run good at all.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be missing a lot of power there. So actually having that spark advance and the kind of slope up of the boost curve is actually going to help you a decent amount, make more torque like we're talking about, and in turn making better power. So Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that you might try is you might try doing a similar effect with your fueling. So you notice your fueling actually started richening out back here. Well, actually, this was you were coasting down here, I believe. So you were in like a DEFCO. So deceleration fuel cut off. It wasn't using any fuel.
Okay.
And then you got back into it here, and it started getting richer. And you'll notice like it's pretty much rich, like where you had it the whole time, like right at the beginning of live and throttle. You might try also just kind of ramping that in a little bit later as well. And seeing
Oh,
if
I
it
see.
helps.
Yeah, and kind of bring that up maybe a little bit more lean as we go through
Yeah,
like, this
exactly.
little slope right
So
here.
kind of try to give it, and you probably aren't, because you are dealing with boost pressure in this area, you probably won't be able to have the same thing you're doing here with the Spark Advance, where everything at this line is now where it should be. But you might just try starting it a little bit later, like maybe right in this zone, and seeing if that helps a little bit.
Okay,
So,
awesome. Thanks, man.
yeah, no problem.
Okay, so overall, how would you say?
I'd give you like a B plus.
A B plus? Hey, that's not bad.
No, it's like you honestly
That's pretty
everything,
good.
and honestly everything you're doing is really safe. You haven't made any like big mistakes. I haven't seen any big issues.
Yeah.
You working in a power progression
Yeah.
format is actually is helping you a lot. But yeah, it's just minor tweaks at this point. Just kind of tweaking AFR and timing, seeing what makes the car the most happy.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, high five.
High five.
Yeah. Okay, so there you have it. Tuning school gave me a B plus. I'm pretty happy about that. I mean, you know, I've really wanted to tune for a long time, and to even pass. I mean, I guess there's kind of a certain level of pass fail. I mean, fail would be the motor just goes poo, and then pass means we're driving down the road. But a B plus, that's awesome, man. I'm really happy. The guys here at the tuning school, Odessa, Florida, awesome program. I would actually like to get into this myself. I think that maybe taking some of the classes would be beneficial. I've had a chance to talk with them a lot about tuning theory and things like that. If there's any specific videos or questions that you guys have, comment below, and the next time that I'm here, we'll see if we can address those. So, all right, thanks for watching. Subscribe. See you later.